Welcome back, everybody, to the final episode of the Next Level Podcast. Has it already been 6 episodes? This is insane. I'm just like looking back on the entire journey and I'm just like, wow, all these inspirational people that I've always looked up to sitting on this couch. But I guess they say you save the best for last, right?
Very glib.
I hope the rest don't listen to this podcast. But with me today is QimmyShimmy. Did I pronounce it right?
Yeah.
Yeah, one of the, I think, biggest artists on social media in Singapore. But I don't know how to explain the kind of works you do. It's like surrealist. How would you explain it?
I think generally it fits into the pop-surrealist sort of genre that is like, if I were to put it simply, it's kind of like what you see in fine art galleries that's like kind of high art, and then what you see as like commercial graphic art is like on the other end, and then pop-surrealist and like lowbrow art is sort of like in the middle. It fits like in the middle. So it's kind of in between the two worlds of commercial and fine art.
Okay.
Yeah.
That sounds very interesting to me because, like, fun fact, I graduated from art school.
Oh.
Yeah. Like, and it's been a while since I've heard all these artistic terms. But we can get into that in a little bit. But then, I just want to welcome you to the podcast. This is the Next Level Podcast where we speak to industry professionals to kind of like learn about their journey, the insights that they've had, and really like what brought them to the next level. So hopefully, like the listeners today, they'll listen to you and be like, oh, cool, I can reach the next level as well. Yeah, are you ready?
It's a lot of pressure, but okay. I'll do my best.
Relax. Yeah, so let's talk a little bit more about like how you started, right? Because I mean, I have this theory that like not a lot of like young Singaporeans would be like confident enough to say I can be an artist in Singapore. So like, how did you start being interested in art, and at what point did you say like, okay, I want to do this properly?
Well, I think like a lot of Singaporean kids, right? I think there is this pressure coming from parents that are always afraid that if their like child decides to go the artistic path, they're gonna not be able to support themselves, or they're gonna struggle financially when they're older. So I think like my parents, although they know that I was creative and they know I was artistic since I was a kid, they were cautious. So it's like half of them like wanted to support, but half of them were like, okay, but maybe you should do something a little bit more practical. And I think what actually like how I found the middle ground is basically telling them I would do design.
Right.
So I actually I was privileged enough to go through like the typical arts. So I did like arts O-level, arts A-levels.
Okay.
Then when I told my mom I want to go to like TP to do design, then my parents were like, yeah, like we know it's a good school, but maybe you should wait till you're a bit older to decide you want to be a designer. So they forced me through the JC path.
Right.
So basically that was kind of that I could sense that cautiousness that was there, but then it all came with good intentions. So eventually when I went to uni and I was like, this is it for me. Like this is like I don't know whether I'll be a designer, whether I'll be an animator or anything. Like at that point I was so open to all kinds. But my parents already knew that this was what I wanted, and they never stood in the way. They never go like, oh, like this is not what we want you to do.
That's nice.
Yeah. So slowly it was just me like deciding how much of the commercials I want to do and how much of the fine art I want to do. And then until today I'm struggling with that balance, but then I think it's natural, like it's part of the
right.
Yeah, like our practical Singaporean side in our
yeah.
I
think Singaporean artists is a very interesting breed, right? Because I mean, most of us go through the same foundational journey, and then that's where you like continue and then like go into further of like what you're interested in. So I want to ask you, like, how did you find like your genre?
Oh, how did I find my genre? That's an interesting question, because usually, like when I grew up, right, I looked up to a lot of different types of artists. Like I think mostly illustrators. I was like, oh, when I grow up, I want to be like an animator. So like fun fact, like my signature, right, actually says California. Like people always ask me why that's my signature, like write California. But that's cause like when I was a kid, I actually looked at I think my parents brought me to watch like Lion King, and then I just thought, I was like, I want to make movies like that. I want to tell stories like that. And they were like, oh, you can't do that in Singapore. Like, you have to go overseas. That was kind of the thing. And then I went to research and I was like, that's where they make the movie.
Right.
And I actually had my signature since I was a kid, like in primary school, like lower primary.
Okay.
And ever since then, I sort of like use it as an anchor, but then so many things change. And I think that's part of the creative process. Like, a lot of things that you set out to do, they kind of change as you grow older and you realize there are other practical things involved. But the core is always the same, that you always want to tell stories, or there's always a part of you that always want to create and always want to express. That part never changed, even though like now I'm doing something that's completely not what I expected.
Right. So like, were there any like influencers that like, not influencers, but influencers that like you look to with regard to like the types of art, like let's say like pop surrealism, right?
Yeah, definitely. I think like when I was in secondary school and in JC, like I used to go to Basha, like the graphic bookstore, and then they had it's amazing, right?
Yes.
Like plug, go check out Basha.
Support them.
Yeah, they're really, really good. The shopkeepers are really nice as well. So because I was not able to access that type of art, it was not like the type of art that you will see in museums in Singapore. It's not the kind of art that you would also see like in on like mainstream media. So Basha was basically where I found all these like juxtaposed magazines and all these like high fructose magazines, and I saw like the works of artists like Mark Ryden and all these artists that use a lot of like surrealistic and like sometimes a bit like occult looking, but I think I was kind of drawn to it because it was a bit creepy and it was a bit cute. And then at a point I was like super done with like things that were very cute. Like I wanted to just find that balance between things that were able to trap between the two worlds. And I was very drawn to it, and I spent so much time there just because I couldn't afford, you know how expensive they are. So I was just like, okay, when I grow up, this is it. And then so it's very crazy. Yeah, there were a lot of heroes that I looked up to, painters, illustrators, and they were just like, I think what is nice about it, like it's like what kids have today on Instagram and YouTube, is that they can look into worlds that are not in their direct environment. For me, Basha was that. So those were my influences.
Nice.
Yeah.
Now you mentioned Instagram, right? And of course, like I think Instagram is a huge part of like, you know, the opportunities that we've been getting. And in fact, like the team here also know of you because of Instagram, of how popular you've become on the platform. How did you start to grow your audience with the kind of work that you did?
I think stroke of luck. Many strokes of luck. Because I actually created my accounts. I used to have one of those accounts that are like really I just throw everything there, like my travels, my clothes, my whatsoever. And then one day I realized that I just randomly posted some of my art that was not even my art in the first place. It was just like I was sculpting something silly at home, and then I just posted it. It was like the heads with the pistachio shells. And then people were just like, oh, like that's so cute, like you should make more of that. And then slowly I think as I made these works again and again, then they sort of like became viral because they're so visceral. Like people just look at them and think that's something really strange, and they share it with like their own captions. And I think that's how it sort of snowballed. I don't think that was when I created it, there was no I had no expectations that it would have that traction. So it's a pleasant surprise, but I think it comes with like a cost as well. I think it's very interesting because like the kind of works you do attracts all sorts of people, right? There's like the fine art people who appreciate like these kind of like works, and then there's like the people who just meme, you know, and that's very much so part of like internet culture, right? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so I think it's quite a like interesting spot that you found yourself in, I think. Has there been any like interesting or like memorable experiences that have come out of like the Instagram world?
Well, I don't think that there's like one particular one that really stick out, but I think one of those things that I really, really appreciated from the Instagram community is just like really being able to meet people that are like-minded, regardless of where they are from. So like even now I have like like really good friends that I text even more than some of my real friends.
Wow.
And they're all over the world, but we just bond because they are also creators themselves. Like they sculpt or they illustrate, and we just have a lot of common interests and things like that. And I think it's always small things like that happen. Like how I always tell people that I try to connect to the people that write to me and the people who comment on my Instagram, because I want to treat everyone like an individual. And I think and every connection to me is sort of like important and precious, and that's what I try to keep, even though it's like kind of difficult sometimes.
Love that. I have a question about like the skill set that's required to be an artist, right? Because like, I mean, from the consumer point of view, when I look at your works, I'm like, oh, that's great. But then like, I would never know how to like create works like that. And of course, like I feel like not every Singaporean kid will be able to like know how to do things like that. So in terms of like skill sets, right? Like what did you do, or like what courses did you sign up for, or what programs allowed you to like learn the certain like artistic skills or tools for you to make the work that you make today?
I think a lot of it is just trying. So like to share like a little bit of context, how I started sculpting was actually out of pure chance. So I was doing this noise mentorship. I'm not sure if you are familiar with it.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
So I was doing this noise mentorship program, and I was being mentored by Pan from Kinetic.
I know. Yeah. Okay. Yes.
So I was super like over the moon when he selected me. But so basically like when I was sort of like paired up together with him, and at a point I was like a true-blown designer. Like I did a lot of graphic work, I did illustration, like 2D stuff, and then he just looked at my work. He was like, it's interesting, but you know, like you can do this for your whole life, you're going to become a graphic designer when you grow up, but then why don't you just try something completely like nobody will pay for it, but then it just makes you happy. And I was like, I'm going to sculpt, but I don't know how. He was like, it's fine. Like, you won't know until you try. And I think that spirit sort of answers your question, is that sometimes I was never formally trained. I never had like workshops or teachers telling me like, oh, this is how you do proportions, or this is how you do materials. But it's just like buying it and then trying it and then burning it, and then like, you know, sometimes you put it in the oven and it burns. I'm not saying it like metaphorically, but it literally burnt. And you just sort of try it again, and just find your voice and your own way of expressing with that medium. And then of course like finding references online that sort of like help to guide you. But I think a lot of these steps need to be motivated by that individual that is pursuing this craft.
Nice. Well, so it all started from like, you know, like a very simple conversation, right? Like, this is crazy. Looking at the works you do is obviously like very signature. Like when I see photos, right? Like that, let's say I don't go to your profile, but it appears on my explore page or whatever. I'm like, I know that's QimmyShimmy. I think a lot of artists out there want to be able to say, like, when I create works, I want people to know it's me without even like my name being on it, right? So what was in your headspace when you were trying to create that brand for yourself, or like a signature, you know, look?
I think this is a very good question, because a lot of like younger creatives, they always say like, how do you find your style? I think it's, well, like I've never found a perfect way to answer this question, because it's very, very tough. Like I think I spent a great deal of years wondering what my style is, and then I'll find some artists that I really like. I'm like, okay, this is my style. I'm gonna do everything I do from then on, like in this particular style, and I'm gonna have my style. But that's usually not the best way we pick up a style. The best way to pick up a style is like just to like really just observe the things that you are drawn to, observe the things that you like, and from those like images that you find interesting, or those artists that you look up to, like all these motifs, they will string out together. And that's how I found mine, in like knowing that I like things that are a little bit creepy and weird, but at the same time, like I just really love cute stuff. Like people always think, oh, like you're into gory things, but when you look at my discovery page on Instagram, it's like all puppies and like and like really cute stuff. Like I love all those what's that thing called when you turn that ball in Japan?
I don't know. What's it called?
Gachapon machines.
Right.
Yeah. Like,
Gachapon.
I'm such a sucker for all those like really ugly, cute stuff. And it's really about like merging all the fascinations and all the things that really draw you to. And then from there, like your style would actually emerge. Like
Right.
like you just need to do like sort of like crystallize it and then it will come out. Like
It
it's
makes
not
sense.
about it's not about copying someone's
Yeah.
style.
You know
or
how they say
anything.
like you're like kind of like the amalgamation of like the people that you hang around with. I guess that's it, right? The creative sense also.
Yeah.
And I want to talk to you a little bit more about the obstacles that you face as an artist. I think firstly, with the decision to be like going into a creative field, I come from the creative field as well. And like a lot of my peers say that like they had to face, like skepticism from family, from friends, even when they decided to go into like I would say like an alternative career route, right? Compared to like what is the typical Singaporean career paths. So like for you, like how was your experience like in that capacity?
I think for my parents, I'm lucky enough for them to like sort of realize that this is the path that I've chosen. And they never really question it, but they just like sort of, like how I was sharing earlier about how it comes from a place where they are worried that I cannot support myself. So once I'm able to prove to them that I can, they sort of like relaxed. So like when I was in university, I was like very, very, I was struggling to get a lot of like freelance work on top of school. So it was not so much that I needed the money, but it's just to prove to my parents that like, hey, chill, it's fine.
Right.
And of course, like once that was like that appeased, right? They never really stood in the way. Like I think the sculpture thing, like to them, is still a little bit strange. They're not against it, but they just like don't really understand it. They're just glad that I'm also a designer. So when people ask, they're like, "Oh, she's a designer," and then they're like, "Oh, but your daughter also make the weird babies, right?" Then they were like, yeah, she also do that, but that's not her full-time job." So it gives them that kind of like assurance that I'm doing something practical and something that's meaningful. And then like sculpting is sort of my hobby, but of course it's a lot more serious than I think like what appears to them.
Right.
Yeah.
How do your friends react when they find out that like you do art?
Well, I think friends are usually very supportive, right? Friends are usually the family that you choose. So, I think friends, like I've never had a problem like explaining to my friends like what I'm doing, and I think it also sort of like I grew up in a very artistic circle because like ever since I'm 15, like O levels, right? I've been doing so much art, so it's literally like everyone in my social circles are almost like all art people.
Got it.
Yeah, so
nice.
I'm lucky in that way. They're either like writers or like architects, or there's no need to explain to them what I'm doing.
Yeah. If a lot of artists actually say that they go through sometimes this thing called an artist block. Like, do you face that yourself?
Yeah, I think it's very common, especially when your work reaches a level of like when it reaches a standard that you want to upkeep. And like for me personally, sometimes I'll feel very scared to experiment, or like when I do something and people are like, "Oh, that's not really your style, that's not really you," and then you're afraid that it will actually like create, like it'll make you go down a slump, and then you will sort of like panic a little bit. I think that is what creates the artist. But it's not so much about like creating, but creating the right things. Like all these things are all imagined, and of course it's a real challenge that I think a lot of artists would have, but then it's fine, like just do it, just like don't show it to anyone.
Right.
so do it in secret.
So your tip to overcoming artist block is just to do first. Like just take the first step, right?
Yeah, like just do first.
I think when I write, so like for me it's also the same. It's just like just write first and then you can edit it later, you know. So I get what you're saying. I was thinking about how when you first started everything that you're doing, you were kind of like just jumping into like the deep end and saying like, "Oh, I want to do sculptures," right? And just try. No training, no whatever. Now that you kind of like mastered like the art of sculpting, right? Are there any other mediums that you want to explore like at this point?
Definitely. I think because I sculpt with polymer clay, and I think polymer clay, it has certain issues with like longevity. I think when it comes to like real collectors wanting to collect my work, and they'll be like, "Oh, if it's done with polymer clay, it might not last." So definitely I'm thinking of like still staying in the sculpting genre, like sort of sculpting medium, but like maybe using other types of medium like ceramics or silicone just trying to see like how using a different medium can push it. Like maybe it would be more like gummy and it can create new possibilities. So I think definitely the like I do wonder whether my work can be something more in another medium. Yeah.
What is like a dream like thing for you to do as an artist? Actually, now that I'm thinking about it, like the idea of like, okay, you know, you're talking about like creating textures that are like more like a certain way, right? But like on a larger scale, there's like, what is something that you would love to be able to do?
Like no production limits.
Yeah.
No budget constraints. I would love to do like a butcher shop, like a butcher theme haunted house.
Ooh.
Yeah. Yeah, like I would love like the whole building is just like pink, but then it's like really creepy, like surgeons and like and like humans like hanging and all these things.
You
like
know who just
house.
popped into my mind?
Who?
Halloween Horror Nights. I feel like you can collaborate with them and like do like a whole room, right, of like your stuff. Like that'd be cool. Are you listening? Resorts World.
Resorts World.
Hey, what's up? Hit her up. I want to also talk to you about like, I mean, we're talking about obstacles, right? So I think I would start from like the baseline, which is that a lot of young artists in Singapore are scared to do art as like a career or like, you know, the creative path as like a designer or whatnot. I think you're kind of like a living example that you can do a creative path. You can do even like having a full-time job and then balancing it with like a artistic career. So what would you say to these young kids who are a little bit unsure about their future?
I would say like just go try it. And I feel that like a lot of the fear that we have or this uncertainty that we have is all like a projection. It's all imaginary. Like somehow we and I think like without that we can live like richer and better lives. So like just put that fear aside and go try it. If you don't if it doesn't work out, then you know that it's really not for you. But I think one of the advice that I would give is that it's not going to be easy. Like a lot of people think that being an artist is like you get to do everything that you love and people will pay you for what you love. Like I think yes, like a lot of good artists when they achieve a level of accomplishment or achievement, I think that happens. But then the early part of it, which I also went through, is like you have to be very hungry and you have to like really just take any opportunities and work very, very hard. I think a lot of people don't see the behind the scenes of like what really makes a creative. You'll probably know because like it takes a lot of like, you know, bad projects and terrible things that you never want to see again to sort of like realize what you really love. A lot of people think that you can get there like really quick, but it's not really that fast. Some people spend like decades trying to achieve something, but everyone should just be patient and like and not think that like, oh, my friend sort of like achieved what I want already and I didn't, so maybe I'm not talented enough. I think that's the mindset that really kills a lot of people who give up. It doesn't run on a same timeline.
Everyone's on their own journey.
Exactly,
basically.
Especially when it's creative work. Yeah.
When it comes to social media, I do think that the likes of like Instagram, you know, even TikTok these days, like has given like a new kind of life to what opportunities an artist can have, in a sense of like getting appreciated, getting new opportunities and whatnot. Like in your experience, like what are some tips that you can share with regard to building a community surrounding your artwork on social media?
I think, well, surround yourself with people who inspire you and like ignore people who don't, because I think the internet as wonderful and like limitless as it is, right? I think sometimes it can become very distracting. Like I was just talking to a friend who's a very, very talented illustrator a few days ago, and then he was telling me like how Instagram kills his morale because like everyone's so good there, and I was like, but you're really good too. Like you're probably killing someone else's morale, and I think like that's the part of it that becomes very like it can become very dangerous to an individual who suffers from like esteem problems or because sometimes you need to believe in yourself before you can get inspired. But then if you see a lot of beautiful things when you're not ready, it can become like very, very intimidating. So I think just know what is your balance and knowing what is pushing you forward and what's holding you back. And use like social media and all that that limitless like all this inspiration out there to inspire you and not hold you back.
Right.
Yeah.
It's quite interesting that you mentioned about like the comparison that people have on social media, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, it has been spoken about a lot, whereby, everyone says that Instagram is pretty much like your highlight reel, and you're comparing yourself to someone else's like highlight reel. So, in your experience, like, have you felt maybe like a little bit of like self-esteem or anxiety as well?
I won't say that it got to the point of anxiety, but of course, like there are a lot of artists that I look up to, and I'll be like, oh, how can I be more like this person? Like, how can I achieve this level of just being very, very strong stylistically and being very creative. And but I don't feel that it has, because when it comes to creativity, right, like everyone is so different. Like I cannot compare myself to a tattoo artist who's really, really good, and I cannot compare myself to an illustrator. We're all different. So in a way, it's easy for me to say I look up to this person, but I can never be that person, and that's okay. So I think for a lot of individuals who are assured of their own style, you're able to say that. But for some people who are not that sure yet, it can become a little bit scary.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Understand. Now, in one of the previous episodes of this podcast, I think Nicole mentioned that she's very open to people approaching her on social media to like, network and whatnot. And then you mentioned that through Instagram, you found your own community online as well.
Yeah.
Then I want to like turn it to the other side of things, right? Whereby, I'm a young person. I want to start networking with people like yourself, like who I like look up to, right? How should I go about doing so? And like, in maybe you can kind of like relate it to your experience where people have approached you to kickstart conversations. Like what works for you?
I would say like be very clear what you want from that person, and what exactly you want to learn from that person. A lot of people that I looked up to, I've never talked to them. I just sort of like stalked them from the shadows. I was like, oh, they're too cool for me to talk to, or things like that. And I think like the younger generation, of course, I've been like sort of, I was like not approached because it's not in a physical space, but they sort of like DM'd me and asked me about like what kind of materials do you use and blah blah blah, which I think is like, oh, when I'm that your age, right, I was not so plucky, but like good on you and your generation. You guys are very outspoken. But yeah, like I always feel that you need to be very clear what exactly you want to learn from this person, and then just respecting that person's time. But a lot of this thing is like, even if you have that knowledge, it's not wisdom. It's like you might know the material, you might know how to do it, but it doesn't mean that you'll be able to apply it or like to create something that's entirely your own. So don't I feel that like it's just like be daring to talk to a person, but at the same time don't feel that like that is gonna answer all your questions in life.
Got it.
Yeah.
Now, I asked this to all my guests at the last part, and I always ask them, if you, now that you've come to this point where you are and you've had your experience, you've kind of like gone to the next level, right? If you were to kind of speak to the QimmyShimmy of like, the beginning part of the journey, what are some advice or tips that you can give her?
I would tell her to just relax. I was so uptight when I was a kid. Like, well, not really a kid. I think I started my artistic journey like in sort of like secondary school, JC, uni. And I wanted to do everything.
Right.
I would tell her like select your projects wisely. Choose your like what to put your time and energy into wisely as well. But at the same time, like look forward and don't look back.
Got it. When you say choose wisely, like what are some of the criteria of like what makes a wise decision?
I think a wise decision would come from you. Like I feel that don't do things that you feel compelled to do just because someone else is doing it. Don't do it because like someone that like your friends are saying that, oh, that's the in thing to do. I think that's usually the danger. I've done a lot of projects that I felt that were kind of like silly and I will never show them to the world again, but I did them because I want to. And I think usually those are the things that I learned the most from. So I think being wise comes from like just knowing what is your intention, and knowing that your intention is sort of like pure. It's not to impress someone else that's not yourself.
Makes sense. Yeah. Now, I have one last question, okay? And I think I'll put you on the spot a little bit, okay? So, you know how you did like the noise mentorship and then like Pan kind of gave you like the advice, right? Of to push you a certain way. So like if you were to become a mentor one day, like what is that one mantra that you will give to like your mentee?
That's a tough one, right?
Okay, I'll give you time to think.
Because that would depend on the mentee.
That's true.
Yeah, right? Yeah, because I felt that what Pan, what made Pan such a good teacher, right, is that he doesn't insist on someone doing the stuff that he does. You know, like he's such an amazing graphic designer, but when I was like under his wing, I was like, yeah, I'm gonna be an amazing graphic designer like you. But then he sort of like realized he looked at you as a creative, and he sort of understand what your gaps, what your motivations, what's your potential, and he pushes you in a way that is like not exactly who he is, but who you are. Okay. And I think like if I were to be a mentor that, you know, that I would want to follow his footsteps, right? I would want to do the same. Like it shouldn't be my projection of who is a creative, but like who is this person in the first place and how can I
So I was gonna say like, okay, then what is your philosophy as a mentor? So that I guess it would be to like kind of amplify the qualities of the mentee.
Yeah, exactly. Like like understand who you are and then make that person that you are like express that person that you are to the world.
Nice.
So that's usually the best way to be a creator.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Oh, Shimmy. Thank you so much for doing this podcast episode. My goodness, we have come to the end of season 1 of the Next Level Podcast. I look forward to seeing your Resorts World Halloween Horror Nights exhibition. I'll be first in line.
Next year.
Resorts World next year. Yeah, this year cannot. What have I said? I miss Halloween. Is Halloween your favorite season of the year? Like
everyone's surprised that I don't watch horror movies.
No, but like the occasion, you know. No, it's not.
No.
I'm shocked. So what is it? Christmas.
Yeah,
Chinese
I'm a Christmas type of person.
Yeah.
Like I don't know why. I'm not even like I don't even celebrate it like as a Christian or anything. But it's just I just like that.
It's the vibes, right?
Yeah, I just like that everyone's being nice.
See, this is the cute side of the QimmyShimmy coming out.
Yeah, exactly.
Nice. All right.
Nightmare before the Christmas.
So I'll see you at Halloween Horror Nights next year. Yes. But before we leave, for everybody, I just want to ask you if they want to listen. Before we leave, I just want to ask you if people want to find you on social media, where can they find you?
Well, I'm most active on Instagram, so at QimmyShimmy on Instagram. That's it. I don't use anything else.
Nice. And if people want to commission you to do the Halloween Horror Nights exhibition, how can they reach you? DM? Email? Is it?
That's email. Yeah. For more serious commissions, like from Resorts World Sentosa. It's QimmyShimmy@gmail.com.
Just calling them out. And if you want to follow Now Academy on Instagram, it's Now Academy SG, and you can get your tickets to Shine Now at www.thenowcon.com. Thank you everyone for listening. Thank you, QimmyShimmy, for coming to this podcast.
It was my pleasure. Thank you. It was fun.
I had fun too, actually. All right. Bye guys. Thanks for watching, listening.